Hey, good morning. Welcome to Fantasy Sports today here on Sports Grid. I'm Craig Mish, along with Davis Maddock. We are in the thick of fantasy football draft season as we close in on the regular season a week from Thursday, and the final day of August is here. We're going to go through the Miami Dolphins from a fantasy football perspective. That's our focus today, Davis, on the show. Naturally, we're keeping an eye on the players who were cut yesterday. Nothing all that significant. I believe Sony Michel trying to hook on with another team. We'll try and see if that ends up happening before the end of the show today. And not quite out of the woods yet. I know that we got another 24 hours before we get this all settled.
Yeah, I would imagine that we'll probably see a couple guys change teams here. There are a couple teams who kept 5 running backs. The Cleveland Browns kept Jerome Ford, Dearness Johnson, Kareem Hunt, and Demetric Felton. The Arizona Cardinals kept Darrell Williams, Eno Benjamin, and Keontae Ingram, and Jonathan Ward. So I would maybe anticipate some of those guys to move around. The Patriots only kept 2 tight ends and 4 wide receivers. There are a couple spotted situations like that where you think maybe they're going to claim someone else who got cut. There's a 6th or 7th round draft pick changing hands, but we're pretty close to the full picture for these teams.
Yeah, I think so. Let's get to our headlines here as we begin the show. 31st of August, 2022. Buffalo Bills play star defensive back Tre'Davious White on the physically unable to perform list. Going to miss some time to start the season for sure. Baltimore Orioles, in advance of September the 1st, are going to have Gunnar Henderson, their top hitting prospect, also DJ Hall, their second best pitching prospect, joining their team in Cleveland. So it looks like they'll be added to the roster before the September 1st call up. They have to be officially on the squad today or ineligible for the postseason. Justin Verlander heads to the 15-day injured list. He is the Cy Young Award favorite, and maybe the pitcher who was the other potential Cy Young Award favorite, Shane Mcclanahan, had a issue with his shoulder, and I would guess he is going to be headed to the injured list, Davis. So in the last 72 hours, if you look over on FanDuel at the top 4 Cy Young Award candidates in the American League and the National League, we lost 3 out of the 4. In the National League, it was Tony Gonsolin. In the American League, it was Verlander and Mcclanahan. So, boy, not being kind to pitchers here over the last couple of days, that's for sure.
No, and I mean, that's pretty much the name of the game when it gets down to the end of the season for starting pitchers, especially as we start thinking about who's going to win the World Series, who's going to pitch, who's
Yeah.
going to pitch on 3 days rest, who's going to be able to go 3 times in a series. And this is why when we were sitting there at the MLB trade deadline, I was like, the Dodgers, they can't get enough starting pitching. The Mets, they should be trying to buy anyone. It's why it was so mystifying that the New York Yankees traded away Jordan Montgomery, right? I mean, I think that probably the number one thing that all of these teams who truly want to win a World Series should be thinking about is how many league average or above league average starting pitchers can we have on our 40-man roster heading into the playoffs.
Yeah.
And a huge shakeup for AL Cy Young, because Mcclanahan, I mean, he was like pretty much running away from it. But if he is not able to start for the remainder of the regular season or only goes, rehab starts, four innings pitch, 5 innings pitch, then we definitely are going to see a shakeup there.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt Verlander, I think the favorite still to win the Cy Young Award. We'll talk about that coming up a little bit later in the show. Seattle's in a fantastic spot with that starting pitching that they have. We'll see how far they can get this, but hopefully I didn't just jinx them. All right, we're going to preview the Miami Dolphins today on the show, Davis. And naturally, this is a team that, when we talk about ADP, has seen a massive jump across the board in all of their offensive players. I don't know about wins and losses, but the expectations for Miami this season, Davis, are off the roof, or basically insane. I don't even know what to say, what word I could use it for. We've seen this before from Miami, Davis. It has happened before. It's happened under Adam Gase. It's happened in the past. They've reloaded, retooled, and it has never worked out. Is this the time it's going to work?
I think it is. I really do. I mean, the first thing is, and you remember this going back to last year, I like Tua a little bit more than, average NFL fan likes to. I think he's really accurate. And I think some of the concerns about his deep ball are a little overblown, right? And how do you help out a guy who maybe doesn't have the best deep ball in the world? Give him probably the best wide receiver we have ever seen in the history of the sport in terms of adjusting to deep balls. I mean, I was watching some Tyree Kill highlights this morning. Happened as ESPN was on at the gym, and I mean, just what Tyree Kill can do when the ball is in the air. He is an artist. He is a magician at creating space once the ball is already in the air. Jalen Waddle, 100 receptions as a rookie. You add in Edmonds and Mostert, some guys with some juice into that backfield. No disrespect to Myles Gaskin, but I mean, come on. He's a nice enough guy, but those guys have a lot more juice. And they signed Cedric Wilson, who actually had a pretty productive season filling in for injured guys for the Cowboys last year. I really think the Dolphins could be a very good offensive team. And the Patriots, I mean, we're the exact opposite for the Patriots, right? It's like we don't have any good reports coming out of there. So, yeah. I mean, like a slight win. If they win at Buffalo early on in the season, like who knows? Who knows what could happen? I do like the Dolphins, I think, a little bit more than the market.
All right. Well, we will get into them coming up next. For those of you getting ready to draft in fantasy football, our preview of the Miami Dolphins offensive players is coming up next. We'll go through the quarterback, the running backs, the wide receiver, and tight end, of course, of the Dolphins as we continue along here on the show. As a reminder, we're previewing one team each day here on our show. So if you've missed any of our previews and maybe this is the first time you've watched our show, go over to sportsgrid.com, check out our YouTube page. Also on social media, we are posting all of our previews each and every day right up until opening night, September the 8th, here on SportsGrid. We'll be right back with our Dolphins preview next. Great.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
In the landscape of college sports, some things remain the same.
College football today.
Of Alabama in winning SEC championship.
It's the island of misfit toys.
Fantasy sports today.
You have to understand that.
Can they survive those first 4 games? They can go 2-2.
Pro football today.
This franchise, they are comical. Now, I'm not making light of the injuries. This is a brutal rash.
In-game live, all access.
You can take the money line.
And the sports book, if you shop around, you can get it at 133. But that's my best bet on the night, Joe. So that's the one I'm going big.
In-game live, prime time.
I'm a bit nostalgic. I'm going with an international, Jason Day and Sergio Garcia.
But boy, you want to give me 8.5 points with a desperate team facing elimination?
Get the winning edge. Only on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Going for 50 home runs now with still a lot of room left here. The player special is out there. Over 61.5 home runs is plus 285. I know the Yankees lost, and yes, that matters. But Aaron Judge is just having a special season.
50 is a huge marker number there. He gets that last night. And then we're trying to take a look at where that's going to be in the future. 59.5 would be up next because 60 is the big marker.
Only on SportsGrid. Fantasy sports today.
He is ADP somewhere around the 8th round. He's a borderline starter for most in fantasy football, but I tend to agree with you. I think that of that range of quarterbacks between like 10 and 15, he seems pretty safe.
He does seem pretty safe, and you also know that you're going to have some good spike weeks with him, when Van Jefferson scores one of those long touchdowns, the 3-touchdown Cooper Kupp games.
The SportsGrid Network.
Sports Professor Rick Horrow inside the $1.3 trillion business of sports with your daily numbers game. We're here at the USTA Tennis Center for the beginning of the U.S. Open, but right now, let's talk gambling, California style. $357 million is being invested in gambling referendums. Prop 26 on the ballot allows for gaming at Indian casinos and their designees. Prop 27 will allow remote gaming by the big guys, the FanDuels and DraftKings and BetMGM and otherwise, as long as it's in concert with the Indian tribes and Indian casinos. I think people behind me are rushing to the polls. Don't you see them? But the bottom line of this is if California's spending all of that money, including the politicians who are spending the money on the homeless and infrastructure before it's even approved, you can bet there is a special significance to this approval. looks like California will be added to the roster. Sports Professor Rick Horrow, Daily Numbers Game.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today here on Sports Grid. I'm Craig Mish along with Davis Maddock, and today we're going to take a look at the team in my backyard, the Miami Dolphins, from a fantasy football perspective. Boy, have times changed in Miami. Once upon a time, this was the Brian Flores-led group, the Adam Gase-led group, Davis, and those days are gone. Mike McDaniel, the very inventive coach from the San Francisco 49ers, has come over. He's brought his offense with him. And so I just wonder, from your perspective, with the additions of the players and the additions of the coach, the Dolphins cannot be accused of not trying, Davis. They have tried now for 20 years, right? Like, they have tried quarterback after quarterback, skill position player after skill position player. Do you want to go through them? It's been Ryan Tannehill. It has been Devontae Parker. Like, they just keep Josh Rosen. They have tried so many different ways to make this work. They went all defense one year. They signed Ndamukong Suh. But you're right. This feels like this is it. Like, if they cannot get it going with this group, there's going to be big problems forever in this town.
Well, I mean, I do think in one way it is a smart strategy. What do we talk about with these young quarterbacks? Look at the difference between what the Jets have done with Zach Wilson and what the Bears have done with Justin Fields. They give Zach Wilson, Elijah Moore, Corey Davis. They spent a first-round draft pick on Garrett Wilson. They signed CJ Uzomah away from the Super Bowl contending Cincinnati Bengals. Like, they give him guys. They draft Breece Hall. What have the Bears done with Justin Fields? Nothing. Well, the Dolphins are going to have their answer onto this season. They invest in an offense. They trade the pick away for Tyree Kill. I believe Gesicki got tagged. I know they negotiated with Gesicki to some degree. They signed the running backs. Like, their offense is as quarterback friendly as it could possibly be, given the resources they had. I don't really know what else they could have done to give Tua more weapons, more room to operate. And I think at the end of this season, they're going to have their answer. Is Tua the guy, or do we need to move on? Do we need to move up in the draft? Do we need to sign a free agent? Like, what are we doing with the quarterback position? So I am on board with that strategy. I may be a little worried, though, about the McDaniels offense, because some of what he says, I think, is very smart, clearly understands a lot of the really high-level advanced play concepts. But he also has been one of these guys of being like, well, we need to be on schedule. We're a running team. We run the ball first. And, like, that having your young quarterback and a lot of 2nd and 8s is not really it's just not really how you set these guys up to succeed. I'm totally willing to see what happens, right? Like, I don't think for sure. I mean, Daniels might just be talking that way, right? Because that's what coaches are supposed to say. So I'm pretty open-minded to just seeing a lot of range of outcomes with this team.
Yeah, I think so. It's a little unpredictable, but I know, Davis, you're a high-risk guy. And look, if you're a high-risk player in fantasy and you want to win a league, I think the Dolphins are a pretty good high-risk team. You could also lose the league completely, let's be honest. Let's take a look at their average ADP in the NFFC. Tua is, essentially a 12th round pick. He's probably not a starting quarterback for you, but he may be at some point. We'll dive into that. Raheem Mostert, I've been burned on him many times before on the show. 90 is his ADP. Chase Edmonds, late pick, 152. Tyree Kill is essentially a 2nd round pick this year. Jalen Waddle, who struggled to stay on the field thus far in the preseason, at 43. And then Mike Gesicki, boy, his ADP has fallen quite a bit from where he was before. All right, so the issues that Tua had last year, Davis, as you've illustrated, were the deep ball that's been talked about. Again, Dolphins fans, you don't want to talk about that because they're going to get very upset. There is some concern there. And then the other concern with Tua, and this is something more, I think, Davis, for the this day and age of the NFL, the Favre, the Winston, is late in games making big mistakes that have, trying to do too much that has cost them games. So in the McDaniel offense, Davis, I guess the question is, does he, play it like he has Jimmy Garoppolo, or does he play it like he has Trey Lance, or does he play it like he has a superstar quarterback? Is it a combination of both? It's still to be determined. We really just don't know going into the season how this is going to play out.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, look, Tua for all of his faults, does do a couple things extremely well. He broke Drew Brees' record for highest completion percentage over a month of the season. There was a 4-week stretch where Tua completed over 80% of his passes. He's very accurate. Now, he does not have the strongest arm in the world. And I do think we see more of this creeping into quarterback analysis and drafting over the last couple of years. Like, Carson Strong, the strong arm guy from Nevada 10 years ago, would have been a first-round pick. He was an undrafted free agent this year because he can't move, right? Being able to move, being able to throw on the run, being these big, strong, athletic guys is super important at the quarterback position, right? Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, these guys are really changing the paradigm. And Tua can move a little bit, but he's definitely not as athletic as those guys. So I do think he probably will play this season a little bit more like a Jimmy Garoppolo style quarterback. And a Jimmy Garoppolo style quarterback, you're never winning the Super Bowl with a guy like that, a guy who in the fourth quarter is not just going to make the magic happen. You can win a lot of regular season games. You can win a road. I mean, Jimmy has won a couple road playoff games. Like if Tua ends up turning into Jimmy with less turnovers, right? Because that's been Jimmy's problem, is he turns the ball over like you absolutely would not believe. If Tua can limit those turnovers, last season he did throw 10 interceptions on 388 attempts. If he can bring that down a little bit, and Tua also, some mobile quarterbacks have this problem where they fumble a lot. Tua has not been a fumbler, only 10 total fumbles. I think he's only lost 2 of those fumbles. Like that's a pretty big deal with younger quarterbacks. They don't have that great ball security. I just am very open-minded to Tua being like the 11th best quarterback in the NFL, which most people have totally said it's not happening, right? There's just no way he can be that guy. But I'm pretty open-minded to it because the one thing you cannot teach a quarterback is accuracy. Pretty much everything else they can learn, they can evolve over the course of their career. But guys who are inaccurate don't really get that skill over time, and he's super accurate.
Yeah, well, we will see going into the season. I think one of the more divisive stories in all of football going into the year for sure. All right, so the Dolphins basically revamped their running game, which struggled so much, Davis, last season, and they ended up adding several running backs, one of which was Sony Michel, but he's no longer there. So the two that seem to be getting drafted the highest are Chase Edmonds, who, always a very good complementary back, Davis, in Arizona, but struggles quite a bit when he's been the guy. So I'm guessing based on McDaniels' former offense is that in this offense, he won't be the guy, but he probably will win a couple of weeks for you.
I think that's probably right. Edmonds has really only started one game in his career. It was against, funnily enough, it was actually against Miami in 2020. He got 25 carries, but only generated 70 yards for 2.8 yards per carry, 3 for 18 as a receiver. This is kind of a case where I think you follow the money. Edmonds, for what his production has been on the field, got a pretty rich contract. I think $6.5 million guaranteed per year over 3 years. Like that is, which doesn't sound like a ton of money compared to what we were talking about with these wide receivers this offseason. But I would imagine they want him to be like a 15 to 18 touch per game guy. And, they kind of use Mostert and Myles Gaskin and Savon Ahmed, depending on who's healthy and who's playing well, kind of as the complimentary guy there. We're certainly not going to see, Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris workloads for Edmonds, particularly as a runner. But I think for a long part of this offseason, he was going quite late. I think he is a pretty strong selection where he's going now.
Yeah, and the Dolphins, obviously, as Davis mentioned, are bringing back Myles Gaskin, at least for the time being, Salvon Ahmed, at least for the time being. And they also added another running back in the offseason that we're going to start off talking about now, and that is Raheem Mostert. So stay on the grid. Coming up next, we'll close out our running back discussion, and then we'll get into the wide receivers and tight ends at the skill positions for the Miami Dolphins from a fantasy football perspective as our Dolphins preview here on Fantasy Sports Today continues next, right here on Sports Grid. So stay on the grid as we'll take a brief timeout and be back with our continuing coverage of the upcoming fantasy football season. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Sports Grid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
They play less games.
The early line.
Take a look at the top 4 seeds here in the Big Ten. They're going to play less.
Rodgers
The
and
morning
Russell Wilson.
after.
We saw movement in the marketplace like
Orlando
Fantasy
Magic.
sports
The Cleveland
today.
Cavaliers are a little thin as well.
Newswire.
Minus 160 favorite on the money line today for Arizona.
Pharrell coast to coast.
That's where they win cups. They win Stanley Cups over there. Give me the
Game
Penguins.
time
Kind of
decisions.
bizarre when you consider everybody is out for the Warriors.
In-game live
I
all
like
access.
Vandy. I like Vandy against Bama. I think Vandy can win the game, take it 4.5.
In-game live, prime time.
The PGA champion.
In-game live, overtime.
done before the final bet.
Get the winning edge. Only on Sports Grid.
You might be the next daily fantasy millionaire. No matter what you watch or where you play, learn from the world's best DFS players. Lineup building tools, expert projections, and advanced stats change the way you play the game. Dominate the competition. DailyRoto.com, the player's choice.
The morning after.
How does Chicago respond in Game 2 tomorrow against Connecticut?
They just got to get better overall play offensively. Only held to 63 points. Obviously, Connecticut is a really good defensive team. And if it wasn't for Candace Parker, folks, with 19, 18, 5, 4, and 6 blocks, that would have been a double-digit home loss. They got to get better play out of Allie Quigley.
The Sports Grid Network. Fantasy sports today.
Cooper Kupp is one that I tend to doubt, Davis. Why do I doubt? I look at huge numbers in sports for anyone and say they can't do that again.
Cooper Kupp is a phenomenal player. He's got multiple 1,000-yard seasons under his belt, 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns. A little bit of a downturn for him in 2020. Then the team trades for Matthew Stafford, and far and away, Cooper Kupp was the biggest beneficiary.
The Sports Grid Network. The early line.
Is that what we're seeing here right now? A fade of Taijuan Walker despite being home here against the Dodgers?
That's exactly what we're seeing here, because if you take a look at Taijuan Walker, who we expected many more bigger things here in 2022 than we've gotten out of him, particularly over the last 30 days, which seems like you're right. Every time Taijuan Walker's start comes up, we sort of try to fade that way or say, oh, maybe it's a chance for the game to get over, or at least for the other team to get some base hits here.
Only on Sports Grid.
Great.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports today here on Sports Grid as we continue taking a look at the Miami Dolphins from a fantasy football perspective here in 2022 and taking a look at the average draft position of many of the players on the Dolphins. Let's start off just by taking a look one more time at their ADP. Of course, we discussed Tua Tagovailoa, their quarterback, who's at 136. Chase Edmonds, who is essentially an 8th-round pick. We're going to hit on Raheem Mostert now. Tyree Kill essentially is a late first, second-round pick, and Gesicki also, as you see on the graphic involved there. All right, let's go back to Raheem Mostert here, Davis, who, I feel like talent-wise is up there with a lot of these, the best in the NFL. I really feel that way, but injuries have just derailed this guy year after year. And last year was no different. First game of the season, gets hurt. We did not see him again. Mike McDaniel is like, all right, this is the first guy that I want on my team. It was basically the first guy that McDaniel added was Mostert. They did this right away, which leads me to believe that he's going to play some. But again, it's so crowded in the Dolphins' backfield that I don't think that even the Dolphins can count on Mostert. I feel like if this guy runs for 800 yards, it's like a huge bonus for them. I don't know what to do about him going into the year.
I mean, if Mostert runs for 800 yards, he's probably been one of the better picks in all of fantasy football because those 800 yards, it's going to be multiple long touchdowns, which is just kind of what he does. I mean, Mostert in his career has scored way more touchdowns per carry than you would expect. He's also pretty decent in the receiving game, which makes sense because Mostert did not even go to college as a football player. He was initially recruited as a track player. Never had 1,000 yards in college, even stuck around, and he was on a bunch of practice squads. Also, he was on the San Francisco practice squad for a while. He was on the Dolphins practice squad. Funnily enough, all the way back in 2015, come back around. And I think the main reason why you have to think there's a real role for Mostert is, one, he was in San Francisco with McDaniels. McDaniels brought him over, and two, healthy enough in training camp for them to say, Sony, thank you for your services. You were our break glass in case of emergency guy, and we don't need you. And part of the reason why I'm not too worried about him, being the third or fourth running back is Gaskin and Ahmed are both going to play special teams. Both of them have been special teams players, and both of them are paid nothing, right? Undrafted free agent and 7th round picks. So they cost like nothing to keep on the roster. I actually think Mostert is a great pick right now, 14th, 15th round, best ball managed, doesn't matter. I think he's probably the best value Dolphin for fantasy right now.
Yeah, it's someone that I'm going to be drafting, taking my shot, my dart throw on Mostert yet again. All right, so Tyree Kill is being drafted lower than he was last year. I guess the expectations simply are, Davis, that he just can't put up the numbers that he did in Kansas City, but that doesn't mean he can't be your wide receiver 1, because essentially that's still where he's being drafted. It's just he's more or less now a 2nd round pick. And naturally, a wide range of outcomes here, Davis. I do think bare minimum he'll put up the numbers that he did last season. The question is, can he put up Kansas City type numbers? And look, people have asked a fair question. What if, Davis, he's not being targeted as much as he wants? What if those numbers start dipping down? What happens at that point with Tyree Kill? I don't know the answer to that, but McDaniel definitely was in an offense that had a lot of mouths to feed, and he made sure they all got that. Where is Hill this season at the end of the year?
I do think Tyreek is probably fine where he goes, because how many times can you get the former number 1 overall scorer in fantasy, no injury, no suspension, nothing's wrong with him, he's been at training camp, no hamstring pull, nothing like that, and you can get him at the 2-3 turn sometimes, right? It's insane. Last season was a down year for him, and he had 111 receptions, 1,300 yards, and 9 touchdowns, 17 touchdowns the year before that, and then missed time with injury in 2019, but was still productive per game. Tyreek, I think, is going to do a lot to just help everyone in this offense, very similar to what he did in Kansas City. Like, Tyreek doesn't necessarily have to be targeted to be helping a play, because he's going to be running down the field. You got to send a corner with him. You got to send a safety with him. And his counterpart, his teammate, Jalen Waddle, really was not used in that way last season. But funnily enough, that was Waddle's role at Alabama. People kind of forget, because Waddle operated so close to the line of scrimmage, but he was a deep threat at Alabama. So they have these two guys, Waddle and Tyreek, blazing fast. You don't know what either is going to do on any snap. Like, to me, these are maybe the best duo of wide receivers in the NFL. It's pretty close. There are some other great duos as well, but I think these guys might be the best.
All right, so Waddle, as we take a look at him, was not used in the way that he was at Alabama at all, Davis, last year. He was like, Wes Welker on Miami last year. He was just catching balls over the middle, lots of receptions, and still ended up with over 1,000 yards, and with both Jacoby Brissett and Tua playing. This year he's being basically drafted in the 3rd, 4th round. And so, Davis, all things being equal, I would think that Waddle, for me, is one of my favorite players going into the draft, but I can't wrap my arms around this because he has just not played at all. He has not played in the preseason. He has not played in their training camp. And I'm just not sure, Davis, what is going on with him at this point. You could just throw caution to the wind and say, hey, the Dolphins are telling the truth and he's perfectly fine and he's going to suit up and play week 1. But where there's smoke, is there fire here on this one? I don't know. There has not been any clear reporting on him.
There hasn't. My sense of it is that he did get banged up at some point during training camp, and they realized, like, look, if we're not playing Jalen Waddle, we cut Preston Williams, we traded Devontae Parker. Like, this is Mac Hollins, who played for them last year, is now on the Raiders. Like, this is not a deep wide receiver room. So I think they kind of surmise the situation as, Jalen Waddle better be ready to go week 1 because the whole thesis behind our offense requires him being healthy. I bet you could win a couple bar bets with Jalen Waddle statistics from last year. More receptions than Stephon Diggs and Chris Godwin and DJ Moore, more receiving yards than Amon-Ra St. Brown and Christian Kirk. Some of these guys, he was really, really productive. Had a couple, actually had multiple 2-touchdown games. Only ended up with, I think, 7 touchdowns in the end because he scored a rushing touchdown. But I mean, if you go back and look at rookie wide receivers who scored more than 16 PPR fantasy points per game, it's like Hall of Famer, wide receiver 1, AJ. It's just like all guys who turn out to be super studs. So I act like Tyreek, I think, is fine at his ADP. I prefer AJ Brown, who goes right behind him. But where Waddle goes, I mean, I just am taking him every time. I'm taking him over Terry McLaurin, taking him over Deontay Johnson, taking him over Juju Smith-Schuster, all the running backs in that range. I think Waddle is one of the best picks on the board in the 3rd and 4th rounds.
Yeah, if he's healthy, I just don't know. Is he going to be active and play next Sunday? I mean, a lot of assumptions are being made there, and I assume that what you're saying is correct. They probably would not have cut the players that they did, but I got to see that happen, and that's my caution with him for sure. And then as we close out with tight end, huge caution, obviously, with Mike Gesicki. Dolphins can say whatever they want. They said they were not trying to trade him. They were only taking calls. Let's be honest, he does not fit in what Mike McDaniel is trying to do. He's a square peg in a round hole. They want blockers at tight end, and he is not one of them. And he was pretty good. And he's a tight end 1, essentially, being drafted like at Davis. I think it would just be a huge mistake to take that leap this year. I don't know how it's going to work out for him, but I just don't see him being on the field nearly as much as he was last season. Maybe the touchdown numbers will have him in that tight end 1 category, but I don't know. That doesn't seem to be overwhelmingly positive based on what I've been hearing.
So Gesicki, it's like the whole time he has been in Miami, it's like, why do you guys hate this guy? None of the coaches there have ever liked him. None of the quarterbacks have ever liked him. I told you, I think we were talking about this last week. Yeah. I went to a Dolphins-Giants game. He's sitting by himself on the bench. No one's talking to him. He's not sitting with the other tight ends. It's just it's very bizarre to me because I look at Mike Gesicki and I'm like, he's huge. He's fast. He has a good catch rate. He has a touchdown rate above expectation in the red zone. Why don't they like him? And I mean, I know the answer to the question, which is he is not a good blocker. It's why they have Adam Shaheen. It's why they have Sethan Carter. It's why they have Durham Smythe. And we see this a lot. I mean, we're dealing with this with Albert Okwuegbunam with Denver. It's like the modern NFL tight end. To be really good, you have to have so many skills. I think it's the hardest position on offense other than quarterback. And Gesicki has kind of always been a subpar blocker. They had him out there with the backups in the preseason, working on his blocking, getting live reps. But to me, what I would do if I was the Dolphins coaching staff is I'd just be like, Gesicki, you are our slot wide receiver. Because who is Brian Flores? I don't remember who the 2019 offensive coordinator was. Some really old guy. Guy was 68 years old. I'll look that up at the break. But Chan Gailey, there we go. So Chan Gailey, because his offense doesn't really use a tight end, just played Gesicki like a wide receiver, and that was his best per target season. So that's what I would do. I mean, he's a matchup nightmare. He's going to be faster than any linebacker, and he is going to be too big for any safety. So that's how I would use him.
Yeah, I think he becomes like that Lee Smith guy on the Raiders and just plays near the goal line and catches touchdowns.
Yeah.
I just don't see any other role for him. But by the way, that's a viable weekly role for tight end in fantasy football. 2 catches, 25 yards, touchdown, get your 8-9 points and go home. I think that's what Gesicki is this year. Any other names, Davis, that we missed? Gaskin, Ahmed, any interests? I know Cedric Wilson is there. He was valuable, by the way, if Waddle is hurt in any way. Any other names there for Miami?
I mean, Cedric Wilson, they signed him to a decent-sized free agency contract, but I think they'll play Gesicki ahead of him.
Okay, fair enough. That's our look at the Miami Dolphins. We will preview the Minnesota Vikings on tomorrow's show, so make sure you join us then for that. But coming up next, time for some fantasy or reality, and then the Sports Grid 60, and then the early line comes your way at noon Eastern. We'll be right back with more Fantasy Sports Today. Don't go away.
Great.
Sports Grid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
They play less games.
The early line.
Take a look at the top 4 seeds here in the Big Ten. They're going to play less.
Rodgers
The
and
morning
Russell
after.
Wilson. We saw movement in the marketplace like
Fantasy
Magic.
sports
The Cleveland
today.
Cavaliers are a little thin as well.
Newswire.
Minus 160 favorite on the money line today for Arizona.
Pharrell coast to
PBG,
coast.
that's where they win cups. They win Stanley Cups over there. Give me the
Game
Penguins.
time
Kind of
decisions.
bizarre when you consider everybody is out for the Warriors.
In-game live
I
all
like
access.
I like Vandy against Bama. I think Vandy can win the game, take it 4.5.
In-game live. Prime time.
The PGA champion.
In-game live. Overtime.
All done before the final bet.
Get the winning edge. Only on Sports Grid.
You might be the next daily fantasy millionaire. No matter what you watch or where you play, learn from the world's best DFS players. Lineup building tools, expert projections, and advanced stats change the way you play the game. Dominate the competition. DailyRoto.com, the player's choice.
The morning after.
How does Chicago respond in Game 2 tomorrow against Connecticut?
They just got to get better overall play offensively. Only held to 63 points. Obviously, Connecticut is a really good defensive team. And if it wasn't for Candace Parker, folks, with 19, 18, 5, 4, and 6 blocks, that would have been a double-digit home loss. They got to get better play out of Allie Quigley.
The Sports Grid Network. Fantasy sports today.
Cooper Kupp is one that I tend to doubt, Davis. Why do I doubt? I look at huge numbers in sports for anyone and say they can't do that again.
Cooper Kupp is a phenomenal player. He's got multiple 1,000-yard seasons under his belt, 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns. A little bit of a downturn for him in 2020. Then the team trades for Matthew Stafford, and far and away, Cooper Kupp was the biggest beneficiary.
The Sports Grid Network. The early line.
Is that what we're seeing here right now? A fade of Taijuan Walker despite being home here against the Dodgers?
That's exactly what we're seeing here, because if you take a look at Taijuan Walker, who we expected many more bigger things here in 2022 than we've gotten out of him, particularly over the last 30 days, which seems like you're right. Every time Taijuan Walker's start comes up, we sort of try to fade that way or say, oh, maybe it's a chance for the game to get over, or at least for the other team to get some base hits here.
Only on Sports Grid.
Great.
If you're following us on Twitter, that's cool. If not, here's how you do it. Just download the app and follow us at SportsGrid and at SportsGrid TV. For the latest news, notes, information, picks against the spread sometimes from a lot of our shows. Our fantasy content is there as well. And if you have a question for us on fantasy or reality, just ask us and put hashtag fantasy or reality. If we like your question, maybe we will use it here on the show. One thing also, Davis, that happened yesterday after we got off the air was one of your two favorite teams, Dallas Cowboys, cut all their quarterbacks except for Dak Prescott. What did you make of that? I mean, and again, the backup quarterback for Dallas is like the most popular player in Dallas, it seems like, through the years. Who's going to be the backup this year for Dallas?
Well, there is optimism. I mean, Cooper Rush has been with them since he was a rookie and has been on the team and on the practice squad. I don't imagine very many teams are rushing to the waiver wire to claim Cooper Rush, and because they are in a tough spot with the offensive line, they're having to keep extra offensive linemen.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that probably what they're doing is keeping as many offensive linemen as possible. They're going to put one or both of these guys on the practice squad, Cooper Rush and Wilger. They also might be a team that maybe they claim Josh Johnson, right? So he just got cut by the Denver Broncos. Maybe they trade a conditional 7th round pick for Mike White or something like that. I mean, I would not be surprised for them to try and upgrade the backup quarterback position, because we have seen Dak does get injured more than
Yep.
I mean, he's missed more time than a lot of starting quarterbacks. We've seen Andy Dalton, Ben DiNucci, Cooper Rush. We've seen lots of guys. So I would not be surprised to see them in the market for upgrading backup quarterback.
It feels like we're always having this conversation about Dallas every year. How is it possible that this is their best option at backup quarterback? I mean, it's like without fail, this happens every year with them. They got to upgrade it a little bit, I would think, but we will see. All right, now it's time for us to cap off our show with a little fantasy or reality. All right, Davis, just over 1 month left in the Major League Baseball season, and the National League Cy Young Award is all wrapped up. It's Sandy Alcantara of the Miami Marlins. Just put it on the board. It's done. The American League was somewhat in question going into last week. Justin Verlander is having this unbelievable renaissance with the Houston Astros, and the best pitcher in the American League in the first half of the season was Tampa Bay's Shane Mcclanahan, who made the All-Star team. Mcclanahan obviously did not have a really good month of July and did not really pitch well in August, but he was on the verge of maybe passing Verlander because Verlander was placed on the injured list. But unfortunately, last night, Mcclanahan went down too. Verlander's the favorite right now, Davis, on FanDuel. He may not pitch an inning the rest of the regular season. Mcclanahan may not pitch an inning the rest of the regular season. If they do, it won't be very much. Fantasy reality. Justin Verlander as the American League Cy Young Award wrapped up.
Yeah, I don't think this is true. I think that there are a fair few number of guys who, if they, really turn it up over this last little bit of the season, would be eligible. I mean, Kevin Gausman actually leads all American League starting pitchers in WAR. He's playing on a playoff team. He has gotten unlucky with wins and losses, so that definitely plays into it. And Dylan Cease could get it for the White Sox as well. Also, Mcclanahan could come back, right? I mean, it's like, so he's got shoulder discomfort. What if he misses one start? What if he misses two starts? And Verlander, I believe, left his last start early as well. Not that I'm salty or anything, because I played him for $11,400 on a DraftKings slate there. But and this is really exciting, right? I love when the awards come really late in baseball because it makes the end of the season feel so exciting. Like one performance can kind of swing it, and a lot of good storylines going in baseball, because right now everyone is sweating Albert Pujols getting to 700 home runs. He's got 6 more, I think. So a lot of people are pretty interested in that. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a total fantasy. I think I see 4 guys who can win it now: Mcclanahan, Cease, Gausman, Verlander. But I definitely don't think it is wrapped up right now on August 31st.
Yeah, it's close for me, but I'm going to say, I'll go the other way. I'll say reality. I do think Verlander wins the American League Cy Young. And the reason why, Davis, again, this is the old baseball narrative, is that because his last name is Verlander. And, a lot of the voters like him for not the most fun guy, by the way, I would say, too, to cover either. But for the way that he has pitched thus far this season, I don't think he throws another inning. And Dylan Cease is the one who was second. I got that wrong. I thought it was Mcclanahan. Dylan Cease would have to have an unbelievable month of September, in my opinion, to win. Now, wins and losses wise, Cease could definitely outshine him. But I got reality. I think Verlander is the Cy Young Award winner. I don't know if he comes back or not. It's a calf issue, I think, that he has, and going to be out at least a couple of weeks. We'll see. I think, by the way, that both Verlander and Mcclanahan almost have to come back, like at least the last week of the season, to get ready for the postseason too. I don't think they would just throw them in the postseason, but all these injuries are just crazy with pitchers. I'll say reality. Verlander, Cy Young Award winner in 2022. Done. All right, now let's go over to the NFL. Quarterback situations are going to percolate immediately after week 1. Happened last year, right? Ryan Fitzpatrick started, done, like immediately, automatically went to a backup. It could happen in other spots for injury, but it also could happen for ineffectiveness. Now, the Tennessee Titans drafted Malik Willis. He was one of the stars of the preseason, looked fantastic. I think he could be the quarterback of the future for the Titans. And Kenny Pickett was obviously drafted very highly by the Pittsburgh Steelers, but it does appear Mitchell Trubisky has won that job, and he will start for them. They could be ineffective. They could be replaced. Fantasy reality, Pickett and Malik Willis will start by week 5. Fantasy reality.
Fantasy on Willis, reality on Pickett. I think the line I would set for Kenny Pickett is like 2.5 games because let's be honest. I mean, I think we have all seen enough of the Mitchell Trubisky experience. I don't think anyone is clamoring to see more Trubisky. And I think Pickett, it's sort of interesting. Pickett was getting negative reviews in OTAs. The beat writers were saying Mason Rudolph has been the best quarterback. And then, I mean, it definitely goes to show that the beat writers do have their own agendas and guys they like on the team, because once the preseason started and these guys started playing, Rudolph looks terrible. Trubisky looks terrible. Pickett clearly looks the best of them, right? He's getting out of the pocket. He is, reacting to the situations way better, which is what you would expect, right? I mean, Trubisky, we've seen him fail in the NFL. Mason Rudolph, we've seen him do nothing but fail, right? I mean, Mason Rudolph has never been good in the NFL. And then we see Pickett, and he looks like a shot in the arm. He looks like a guy who's going to be able to get the ball to Claypool and Pickens and Deontay Johnson and Pat Freiermuth. And to be honest, I mean, the Steelers have such an alchemy, such a way of winning games. I feel like it would be a waste of a season to be like, well, Trubisky and Rudolph are the veterans. Like, you got to play the best guy. I think Pickett's the best guy. Now, I do think Willis will totally start games this year, but it's going to be after the Titans have started to lose. They're not, it's like we saw this with Trey Lance and Jimmy G last year, right? As long as the team is winning, the veteran starts. But if the Titans are 2-5, if they are, it's like, and maybe it won't happen until week 12 or week 13 or whatever. But if you set the line at 1.5 starts for Willis this year, I'm taking the over.
Yeah, I would do that too, but I got fantasy on both of these, and I'll sort of illustrate it. I'm in agreement on Willis. The Titans would have to be bad. They would have to lose, and they're playing in a division that's sort of winnable for them, even though they just continually are losing talent, and they definitely are not going to have a reboot to where they were 2 years ago. I think where they almost got to the Super Bowl. So Willis is going to play for them, but it won't be, I don't think, until the end of the year. As far as Pickett goes, I sort of disagree. I think Pickett will end up being good for them. But Mike Tomlin, this is a loyal dude. Like, he is going to play. I think he's going to play this guy Trubisky until he can't play him anymore and things completely go sideways. I don't think that this guy played Duck Hodges for a few weeks, if you remember. So I am going to say fantasy. I think Trubisky starts the majority of the season. The Steelers are kicking around the 500 mark. People are yelling and screaming to play Pickett. Tomlin is doing his press conference, Davis, every week saying, we're winning games. We got a good defense, and I think Pickett waits. I do. I think he waits, and Mitch starts a lot of the season. So I got fantasy. I don't think either is starting by week 5. All right, let's move on. And wow, a huge pumpkin, Davis, was found here. And I got to tell you, when Halloween comes around, my family, we are the first ones always to go ahead and go get ourselves one of these pumpkins for Halloween. And a man celebrated his 60th birthday by floating down a river with an 846-pound pumpkin. 846 pounds in an attempted world record. Fantasy reality, Davis, you have seen a pumpkin that weighs more, we're not even using 800, than 300 pounds. Fantasy or reality?
Yeah, this is reality. I mean, this is a big Midwestern thing. Like, we love this in the Midwest. We love world's biggest blank, right? World's biggest ball of twine, world's biggest whatever. I mean, it's just such a Midwestern thing. It's like you go to these small little towns and they all have their little attraction. I don't know. I definitely have not seen one 800 pounds or whatever, but, Fall Fest, Halloween type things or whatever. Total reality. I've seen some big, massive, giant pumpkins. Our household, same way, by the way. We're the first one on the block with the pumpkins and the decorate. My wife loves the fall festivities for sure.
Yeah, we will go get one of these at a local place. I'm gonna say fantasy though to 300. Seen, like maybe, but not touched, not come close. And again, you also have to remember something about October in Florida. It's still sort of hot, and Halloween is still a thing here, but it's a lot different, I think, than it is in a lot of other places around the country where you were walking around outside, Davis, sweating and in costumes. It's sort of not as much fun. It just depends on what the weather is. October still is hurricane season. We're buying these pumpkins 2 weeks before Halloween too, not usually the day of. So I would say fantasy. I don't think 300 pounds. No, I don't think that I'm in on that. But this guy going down a river, Davis, at an 800-pound pumpkin, 800 pounds. It doesn't even seem real.
I mean, I did, like, this is one of those ones that I did happen to see before Brett put it in our little thread.
Yeah.
I mean, it was quite the scene. I can't imagine that riding in a pumpkin is really all that comfortable. In fact, I would imagine that it's probably not a very comfortable. I mean, it's just like these Guinness Book of World Records things that people do is you have to get so extreme and absurd, and I don't know, just like not really that interesting to me. I mean, I just can't. The thing's got to get wet. It's like rotting. It's soaking in water. I mean, that cannot be fun.
No, not good. And the smell, by the way, after, no good too. Yeah, so yeah, I got fantasy on this one, but definitely cool to see that, at least interesting. All right, that'll be fantasy reality. Coming up next, we have the Sports Grid 60. Then we got to get out of here because Kevin and Donnie are standing by. They're ready to take you down a memory lane of the early line from this morning. So stay tuned to that. That's 12 to 2 Eastern. Then I'll be right back with you here at 2 o'clock Eastern for Newswire. So stay tuned to that as well. As a reminder, we are previewing the upcoming fantasy football season. I know that we're basically getting toward crunch time. Usually, I would say half the country who plays fantasy football, if not more, are drafting this upcoming weekend. So tomorrow on the show, we will take care of the Minnesota Vikings as we get closer and closer to the start of the season. And then naturally, next Thursday night, starting next Thursday, and a lot of the programming that we do here on the show will be a lot of DFS action. Davis and I will help you set some lineups for fantasy football for the weekend on FanDuel, DraftKings, or wherever you are playing DFS, and naturally talk fantasy football with you all season long. So we'll be right back to wrap things up in just a couple minutes. Stay on the grid.
Great.
Sports Grid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
In the landscape of college sports, some things remain the same.
College football today.
Of Alabama in winning SEC championship.
It's the island of misfit toys.
Fantasy sports today.
You have to understand that.
Can they survive those first 4 games? They can go 2-2.
Pro football today.
This franchise, they are comical. Now, I'm not making light of the injuries. This is a brutal rash.
In-game live, all access.
You can take the money line.
And the sportsbook, if you shop around, you can get it at 133. But that's my best bet on the night, Joe. So that's the one I'm going big.
In-game live, prime time.
I'm a bit nostalgic. I'm going with an international, Jason Day and Sergio Garcia.
But boy, you want to give me 8.5 points with a desperate team facing elimination?
Get the winning edge. Only on Sports Grid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
If you want to pick like a pro, you need to be in the know. The future of sports gaming is now, and we take you inside the lines, breaking down all the action and what it means for your bet slip. Turn down the game and tune into Sports Grid Radio. Other networks talk sports talk, but we walk the walk, right up to the window. Sports Grid Radio.
Listen free on the Sports Grid Radio app, iHeart, or TuneIn, or catch us on SiriusXM Sports Grid Channel 159.
The morning after.
What did you make of this decision by San Francisco to retain Jimmy Garoppolo, have him on the roster in the QB room for 2022?
Well, what we heard the entire offseason was how the 49ers were trying to shop Jimmy G the entire time, but they weren't hearing back great offers. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to be there for the whole entire season. As you know, it gives them about 2 more months before the trade deadline, and they could actually move him before then.
The Sports Grid Network. The early line.
Panthers-Browns is a 2.5-point spread now, so the line has moved a little bit. In fact, maybe you can consider it a decent amount, because this was a 2.5 Cleveland line for quite some time, which puzzled us. What we now have, the Panthers laying just under the field goal total here, very low, 41.5.
There's a lot to dissect on what the actual Carolina Panthers are going to be.
Only on Sports Grid. Fantasy Sports Today.
Cam Akers was one of the bigger stories of last year, returning very early from an ACL injury. and what a really great story it was, but unfortunately didn't look very good when he came back. Now, a lot can be attributed to that, and I guess that's why we'll do a deeper dive here. His ADP is 18 in terms of running backs taken. His positional ranking is 18, and overall is going approximately in the 3rd round.
The Sports Grid Network.
Great.
Mexico City will host a Major League Baseball game. The San Diego Padres will be part of it. This is coming next season. Really cool story. We'll tell you more about it at 2 o'clock Eastern on Newswire. Let's turn it over to Davis before we go. Here is his Sports Grid 60.
So we are now to that's a little bit curious season with some of these depth charts, and I do think that there are some hints that you can gather from here. So I gave a couple examples when we were heading in. The Cardinals keeping 5 running backs, maybe an indicator they're not feeling that good about James Conner, right? If you have 5 running backs, you probably are saying maybe our starting running back gets hurt. The contrary example, the New England Patriots, 3 running backs. They cut 2 guys they drafted. It's just Damian Harris, Ty Montgomery, and Ramondre Stevenson. The opposite would be true there. They feel pretty good about the 3 guys that they have in that room. So I would encourage you as we head into the biggest fantasy football drafting this weekend, when you're thinking about some of these mid-round choices, definitely pay attention to those hard decisions that an NFL team would have had to have made.
Fair enough. I had my first draft last night, Davis. It was a snake draft. But in this draft, Davis, there were 4 teams involved, and there were 44 players involved in this draft. It was the Fall Little League draft for the upcoming season. And wouldn't you know, when we did the draft, 44 players involved in it, we ended up, Davis, with the first pick overall, number 1, and that ended up being graded out as my own son. The very first pick in the draft was determined for him to have to be the number 1 overall pick out of the 44 kids. Very rewarding moment there last night, hearing the coaches basically battle, saying that we had to lose our first overall pick because my son is on the team. I can tell you that hopefully that means that we're going to win the championship, but you never know. That'll do it for the show today. Thanks again, everybody watching, of course, friends at LTN, our great graphics department, our producer, Brett Levy, and my co-host, Davis Maddock. I'm Craig Mish. Hope everyone has a great day. See you tomorrow.